No, you're fine. Only and it's seeing else. I'm just, I think Tony was only just center. And I don't know if Sharon Morris, I haven't heard from her. I usually do. Do you hear from Sharon?
I didn't, but it's been a confusing afternoon.
I just figured out the many usually she just reads prayer. So.
Okay.
It's
streaming now. So
6, 7.
Okay.
Well, 6. Yeah.
We're fine. Okay, perfect. All righty, we're gonna call this practice meeting to order. I'd like to introduce Michaela Heiston, who is new to the board and is auditing the committees to see what she likes. So, all right, let's move on to review on-site packet.
Madam Chair, there is no on-site packet.
Okay, additions or revisions to the agenda? Anyone? No? Okay, announcements. Are there any announcements?
I don't have any except, I think Michaela is assigned to the practice committee.
Oh, is she?
She is, yeah.
Okay.
This is one committee that she wasn't on.
All right, I'll ask for a motion for the approval of the minutes from September the 13th of 2022.
Andrew Goldsmith, board member, I so move.
Have a second?
Lori Ellen, board member, I'll second.
Okay. And we're gonna go on to the unfinished business, which is the legislative review KAR 60-7-105.
Madam Chair, in your packet on page 5 is what was reviewed in September. And after the meeting, it was determined that the wording related to shall not substitute for registered nurses or licensed practical nurses in adult care was inadvertently removed. So on page 6, we've revised that to where it still incorporates what the committee's intent was to change it to the psychiatric facility and that piece, but then to make sure that we included the shall not substitute for registered nurses or licensed practical nurses. So page 6 is actually the more up-to-date regulation for you guys to consider and add more changes and whatever if you wanted, but got that after the meeting and I apologize.
No problem. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? With the updated, including that back in. Motion to approve.
Andrew Goldsmith, board member, I move to approve KAR 60-7-105 as written. Was that the right one?
Yes.
Good.
A second.
Lori Ellen, board member, I'll second.
Thank you so much. Okay. Number 2, the RN LPN scope of practice components of nursing comparison chart.
Madam Chair, in this chart was being drafted with input from committee members, and I still have not heard from the committee members as to their input. So I've reached out, but we'll continue to reach out and get that updated. So, and I think we were also comparing back with the Nurse Practice Acts statutes and regs to kind of tie in all that together with the competencies from ANA. So it will come back to you guys.
Okay. All right, perfect. We'll put that on our agenda.
Sure.
For March.
Let's have it.
All right, new business. Practice questions.
In your packet on page, getting on page 7 is the practice call data. That, what the inquiries have been, the volume that we have seen. These are the practice related questions that we have been receiving. There's a question as to, what type of things is the practice committee seeing in their own practice that perhaps are current issues that maybe we need to research and address and present and formulate be on a proactive instead of a reactive type environment is my thought. On page, which page is this one? Page 8 is the general response to the practice inquiries that, our general counsel has helped us draft. And we have talking points that we refer back to the Nurse Practice Act statute and regulations. We also walk someone through if there is a complaint that's submitted because of your practice back to us, how does it process through the case investigation? We also look at whatever's evidence-based and we refer them back to, what is current for their area of specialty to look at too. So we try to help answer and guide them, but we're limited in sticking with what the language of the Nurse Practice Act is. So I also found this scope of practice decision tree for the RNLP, and it's on page 9. And we've drafted it for you guys to kind of like review and see. It kind of helps the nurse, critically think through a process and a practice step. It's something that we can potentially, if you want to use it, potentially look to see about putting it on the website. The reason for this is that we've had some inquiries that they like the decision, what's it called? The delegation of tasks for a school nurse that we had done and put on the school nurse resource tab on the website. Some people are using that and thinking that can go into other settings, and it's specific for school nursing. So this would be something that is just general and broad, is our thinking. So
Is this something that you guys created or?
no, I believe it was another state board of nursing. I can't even remember where I found it, and it was like, let's change and see, but put our logo on it and see
Right.
what we can and we took out some of the other state boards of nursing stuff because they had position statements and things that we can't draft those.
Right.
So we tried to kind of tweak it down to what we have and are able to do, but it refers, people back to their facility policies and procedures and your education and training levels, and which is what we all say back to them. So
When I looked at it, I thought it was a great algorithm. that
Right.
we all use. So that was very appropriate for nursing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it seemed very straightforward. So I was really excited about that.
And it's very thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
The part where is the nurse prepared to accept responsibility for managing outcome and consequences of actions, you're gonna get a lot of calls on that one.
well, it's either a yes or no.
It is. It's going to be a yes or no, and then it's going to be refer back to your
Education training and your facility policies and
your
procedures.
and whoever's over you. Because, yeah, it is definitely a no. If it's a no, you stop, but then there's the other common sense part that goes with it, and I don't know if that, I apologize. It says, okay, no, I don't just not do this. I do this to notify someone that I'm not comfortable doing this.
Right. I see what you're saying. And plus, I think it helps too with the changes in the NCLEX with the next gen when they're going to incorporate a critical thinking piece. It kind of helps force the nurse back to understanding what is it that, just because you can do something, should you do something? I mean, that should be also, something that we also all integrate into our practice. So it's just like I said, it's a tool.
Oh, I love it. I just was concerned because if we post it without any,
So you want some education to go with it?
I would think something stop this, be sure you're notifying somebody that,
Oh, okay.
Follow up with the next in line or.
there you go,
Okay.
there you
For
go. What
additional
you
guidance.
want your LPN to- or to-
Right.
to, you know, who to go to. Because, yeah, it's a stop, but
Don't err on neglect because.
yeah, they're not doing it.
No, if you scroll to page 10, there are certain like types of questions and things that it kind of also forces the person to, double down on too. So,
And I
Yeah,
think that's
always
amazing.
have that with that, but then also look to see what else we can like incorporate.
That would be, you know, given some of the things that come up.
Right, that we see in other committees, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like, I think algorithms do help a lot. Because, you know, one, we're critical thinkers to begin with, so working through this process a little bit on our own helps us answer a lot of our questions. Or make better questions. Some of us are really good at coming up with.
Well, depending on where you go, if you're used to being in a certain setting and then you do go somewhere else, your thought process is completely different.
Their policies and procedures.
So
are
it makes you
different.
stop and think, can I do this here or not?
And I thought we could like maybe post something in the newsletter or I'll work with Colton as far as putting it on the website, but do you want to see any type of other communication that we would add relating to this before we do all of that? Or is this okay to go ahead and post on the newsletter on its own, or maybe we could bring back stuff in March if you would want to review some of that nature first?
I like the way it looks.
I like it the way it
I
looks.
felt very comfortable with it. I mean, I think what
Well,
Catherine
and
said, like definitely.
again,
add a little bit
You're
more
gonna
to
get
it.
the questions, so you just say, well, you know, what would you normally do when there was something you couldn't do?
Right.
So this isn't all inclusive. This is part of your process of.
Right.
Basic guideline.
Okay.
So I,
Amy, do you have any additions?
I don't think.
Okay, thank you. That's their opportunity to say what they needed to say. That looked fabulous.
Yeah.
I think it's something that, could be incorporated at, facilities to help their staff. And then they could tweak where they needed to also. So I think it's really something, especially originating from, you know, the board, not that we made this, but originating this information that it's a good, it's good for it to come from us to give them the tool to help make it their own.
Well, I think it ties well with the practice questions that come in too, because sometimes they want to know, they want permission from the board. Can I do this?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
The board's not, gonna do that ever, so.
Well, and I
you know,
think too, for nursing schools coming up on the next year and stuff, this would be great guidance, because as a student, I will tell you that that's a lot of what our questions are in practice in school. So this would be immensely helpful.
We can share it with the schools of nursing for sure.
Yeah.
Is there any correlation with this practice decision tree for the RN and LPN with, and I realize that we don't cover them in the board, but with CNA practice? Because many of us nurses work with CNAs and we wonder sometimes what they can do versus what we assign them to do. And maybe the same type of decision tree could be done for them.
That would probably have to come from the.
Sure.
Yeah, we'd have to come from KDAD. I
Sure.
mean, we could give them a
And-
suggestion.
That would be great, because I agree, that would help.
Right.
That would help supervising other areas.
Or even if just, because I know that we could supervise them, like in December, so
Yeah. And
I'm
in
gonna work with them.
hospice, we have to supervise the aide and the LPN every 14 days. It's something that we have to put in our documentation, so it'd be nice to have something like this.
That was a great idea.
Yeah.
Every 14 days.
Well, I think that's really great because going into a home and being responsible, it's nice to have as an LPN who started school and you reported back to your RN. They've gotten more and more away from that. You report straight to a provider. Well, in your environment, that's not the case.
That's absolutely not. And
So,
It depends on the setting, yeah.
Yeah.
right, the
Yeah.
setting makes it or breaks it.
time of day,
The facility, what they want done and so forth, yes.
I think as time goes on, just the facilities themselves change so much, like the makeup of, the hierarchy, so.
and I also think it draws a firm line between. Yeah, sometimes in home health or in hospice, a nurse will say, can you give that patient their meds when really. That really shouldn't be happening.
So you cross lines.
And there's a line that gets crossed sometimes, and having a decision tree like this would help the nurse not to make that CNA or
Request that.
someone else uncomfortable, or the LPN uncomfortable. Yeah.
A little less gray area.
Exactly.
Which is great now. Think about.
It opened up a great dialogue. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
it would.
but sharing it to tell them that, hey, we liked this so much, we thought, this would help.
We can
That
certainly open up that
organization.
dialogue, yeah,
And that brings
And
what
how
we
do we
talked
help?
about
yeah.
in the retreat about bringing the other units together with us and collaborating.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So you did great.
Way to go, Linda.
Hey, thanks.
Okay, practice calls, we always did the call report, correct?
Yeah, you looked at the
Yeah, okay.
report, yeah.
And, anybody have anything to say about the practice calls?
I will say sometimes, they're not really kind when they, and we try to be very respectful and professional back, but sometimes, it's.
If you don't take their side, they're.
We often don't take sides.
Yeah.
We can't say it's one or the other happen, but, and say what the board said, I'm just board staff, I don't speak on behalf of the board, so.
Right.
It's- And I think that nurses in practice don't really understand how the regulatory agency works.
Right.
I kind of gather that from what their questions are. It's like I said, they want permission sometimes, and we're like, okay, we want to help you, but I'm limited.
Right.
So on the whole health approach for this, the people doing these calls, highly recommend y'all look into that for the self-care. Because it can be highly stressful and wear you down. And nursing has really gotten into looking at for their staff, the whole health approach of how do we take care of ourselves when we go through these calls and these things, because we don't want our people to be eroded away.
It makes that
Because-
burnout happen really fast.
It does, so
Yeah.
hopefully that can be something that can be incorporated. Because of,
That's a good point.
you don't realize until somebody says, I'm done.
We've lost a lot that way.
Yes, we're seeing it a lot in nursing. And I think sometimes we forget that we're not in that only little bubble. And sometimes we're very direct.
Our employees have an EAP program that all state employees have access to.
Oh, good.
Maybe we just need to remind them
Yeah.
of that too. So.
Do we have somewhere posted? I haven't looked at the website. So is there that says exactly what the board does, like very plain description?
Well, we have our mission and then the 4 different divisions. I will tell you, there is a big interpretation out there that we are here for the nurses. I mean, I just had an email about this last night, just ripping one side and down the other because you work for us.
Oh,
And I thought, no, really, no.
Oh, yeah.
So they don't understand the difference, I don't think, between the Board of Nursing and a professional organization like KSNA. Okay, we are not here to protect the nurses. We are here for public protection. You know, if we can also help the nurses in that process, that's great. However, that's not our first priority in our mission is to protect the public. That's one of the reasons we have a new sign in our lobby because they used to argue out there about why we were here. Well, now we can just point, this is our mission. This is why we were created. And I've had them say, well, you guys just, you that's not what you're supposed to be doing and stuff. And it's like, it's the law. And so really what they're wanting, you know, somebody to go to bat for them and all of this, that's KSNA. And that's what I refer them to because they do that. You know, they're all into the staffing and stuff. And it's not that we're not, but there's nothing in the Nurse Practice Act about staffing. So we have no authority over that. That's what they don't understand is our authority comes out of that Nurse Practice Act. So we can't go out here and do all these extra things unless we have the authority for it. And some of them don't even know what the Nurse Practice Act is. And when they call you and they want an answer and you refer them to a section of the Nurse Practice Act, they're really bent out of shape because I want you to tell me. I don't want to read it.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's very true that the advocacy leg of any profession is the professional
It
organization.
is.
It's not the regulatory agency that we don't have statutory authority to advocate for the nursing profession. So, yeah, they quickly don't understand. I don't know how to
Can
do any
we-
education back.
Can that area have a spot in our newsletter explaining what they do?
Sure.
Let's educate.
I like it.
Where to go.
On what the difference is between the Board of Nursing and
And-
a professional
and
And
organization.
who the advocacy group is.
An advocacy group, this is who you would talk to because evidently
The
that
difference
needs to
between
be, yes, ma'am. Perfect.
Regulatory
that's
board
good.
I know,
are
I
very
think-
different than
Yeah.
advocacy boards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kansas has a lot of different organizations. I mean, I'm sure CCRNs have an advocacy area and our school nursing has theirs and nurse practitioners have theirs. They need to know where to direct their question
Right.
for a better response.
And
perhaps
to
even.
have to advocate for themselves and for other nurses for things to get changed within, which we're not able to do in this capacity. But we couldn't cover everything under our umbrella. We've got other places that do a wonderful job, so if we can direct them there.
That's a great idea, yeah. And we can also look at putting something on our website because I will tell you, we do work more with KSNA than I've seen in the past. I mean, Kelly and I, their director, we probably talk at least on a weekly basis, if not more. Because we'll have stuff come to us and it's like, okay, well, Kelly, this probably has more to do with you. And so I send it to her and she kind of does the same thing back. And I will tell you, she does a lot of education about what's the difference between KSBN and KSNA. But I will tell you, one of the biggest problems is when either of us go across the street to testify, they just blend us all together. They think that I'm with KSNA and KSBN and they're all the same thing and there's no difference. And they do the very same thing to Kelly. So I think there's a lot of opportunities.
Well, it sounds like everybody
Hear that.
could use some education on, you know, what goes under what umbrella.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, anything else? Any other comments? Okay, we'll move right along the agenda for March of 2023. We'll make sure to have the RN LPN scope of practice components of nursing comparisons chart. Do you want an update on the practice calls? Just to kind of, are we just gonna revisit that every 3 months
I will,
about to
yeah,
see?
I'll just
Okay,
get an update, and then if we've got anything posted in the newsletter or website by then, we'll inform the committee as well, and maybe keep thinking of more ways that we can educate as far as what the board is able to do, so that they direct their questions in the right manner to the right party for the best resolution in a timely fashion.
and then hopefully we'll see the numbers go down.
That sounds like a great
And
title
frustration,
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they rabbit dial until they finally get someone who will just tell them something, and it's like, okay, no, can't do that either. So. Rabbit dial, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything further?
Did we need to move to approve?
Oh, do we have
The
the agenda?
Do we need to do that one now?
Oh,
So
sorry.
Move to approve the agenda.
if this, yeah, it's one of the, I move to approve the agenda.
If you made revisions to the
So
agenda.
we don't need to
because,
do
yeah,
that.
Yeah, the agenda is
Gotcha.
approved by the chair prior to being posted.
Good.
So if you make revisions to the
Sorry, we're
agenda,
just-
then
Okay.
Make sure paperwork's done.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hannah would have stopped this and said, "We need to approve."
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was watching.
Okay, if there's nothing further, motion to adjourn.
I don't think we need to move.
Oh, no, yeah, motion, sorry.
You can just adjourn.
We can adjourn. Yay. Thank